I want to talk about a story that broke over the weekend on The Guardian, which was about an annual event that takes place in the north of the United Kingdom, where essentially it's called the May Dip. People gather, they get into the sea, and there's some kind of ritual. The sun is coming up and down, everyone's healing their energies, and essentially they're having a good time. It happens every year, but this one has caused quite a little bit of controversy, and it's all surrounding photographers that were attending the event. I kind of want to unpack what happened and also give you some thoughts on what I think may have happened during this event. So let's take a look. As you can see here, it's called the St Andrews May Dip. It takes place in the North Sea, which is on the coastal area of Fife, which even in May, springtime, is very cold. And you can imagine people getting into the sea. They're wearing swimwear. Guys are wearing shorts and women are wearing bikinis, if you will. And the actions of the photographer, and it's the women that are making the complaints, the women felt that they were being objectified throughout of the event. And for many, it actually spoiled the overall experience. There was one girl here who said, "It ruined my night." She's a student called Anna. And this was after the images started spreading online. And she says, "Now, when I think about the May Dip, I think about that image and that's it." Now, I should say that the original story or the images that they're talking about were not published in The Guardian. They were actually published in the Scotsman. So we're going to jump over there and kind of look at the images and try and understand better the point of view of the people that were attending the event and also the actions of the photographer. So if we look at this ad-infested website, the Scotsman, you can see right here the lead image is of 4 young women in their bikinis. It looks like they're interacting with the camera so that they're aware that the photographer's present, and you know, they seem fine with it, but that's not to say that they were not uncomfortable. Who knows? We can only go on what they're saying in retrospect. The next image is a silhouette again of women. Just got some gathering pictures here. So here's the full shot from the lead image, which is full shots of bikinis, more women in swimwear, some terrible ads. I have no idea. Okay. Look, the first 4 images are predominantly women in their bikinis. Now, that's not necessarily the fault of the photographer. Of course, if they're there to document the event, then women in bikinis are going to be photographed. There's no avoiding that. That's not the photographer's fault. It's not the people who's attending's fault. It's just that's the nature of the environment. The photographer's there to make images. Now, we can't see the photographer's SD card, so we don't know what percentage is of women or what percentage is of men, mixed, whatever. But we do know how editors work, and we live in a society where we are in a fight for clicks. I work in publishing, albeit on a much smaller level, but it's a complete competitive environment where we are trying to get people to click on articles relating to photography. And not that we design the rules, the reality is that people are more likely to click if the image that they're looking has some form of attractive individual, and 9 times out of 10, that's going to be women. So it could be the case that the photographer's got a mix of images. He or she has sent them off to the editor, and the editor's had to make an editorial choice of what's going to be the most striking in terms of getting eyeballs on the article. Is that a great thing? Not necessarily, but who knows? Now, if we go back to the Guardian article, one of the girls, she said, it felt like it was just girls in bikinis getting their pictures taken. It wasn't a picture of the whole beach. I was in focus and everyone else wasn't. It's unclear whether they're making this judgment after the fact when they're seeing the photographs. You know, again, that might not be a representation of what's happening, but they've seen that it's only women and it's made them feel more uncomfortable. It could be that they felt that the photographer was just pinpointing females at the time. And this is a tricky one because, look, women are going to be more aware of a photographer photographing them than men are, because women have had a completely different experience to men. And unfortunately, it's not always been a positive one. So women are going to be more on edge and more mindful when there's an individual in the water who may not be dressed like them. Photographers may have just gotten in normal clothes and they're taking pictures of young women in bikinis, whereas men we probably wouldn't pay much mind to someone taking our picture. We're just having a good time. We don't have to worry about the after events of what's happening with the image, because the consequences 9 times out of 10 never as severe as if we were women. So yes, it could be the case that the photographer was predominantly photographing women. That doesn't necessarily mean the photographer was doing it with ill intention. If they're a professional photographer and they've been doing it for years, they know how the editorial process works, and there's a fine chance that they knew what were going to get their editors signing them off. And there's no point taking all these images of different scenarios when a concentrated section of the attendees are going to be the ones that editors are going to be looking for. There's been no kind of pushback or comment from the photographers, so there's not much to say there. I do understand why people will feel vulnerable in that situation in the modern era, but it doesn't necessarily mean to say the photographer's done something wrong. So I'm biased. I'm a photographer, so I'm going to give the photographer the benefit of the doubt here. But it is interesting. It strikes up a good conversation. I'm sorry for the young women that had their experience spoiled. I understand why, especially from an editorial perspective, when they see the images that are included up at the top. But yeah, it's an interesting one. What do you think? Is this all much of nothing, or do we understand the actions of the photographer? How do you, if you are a photographer, approach sensitive kind of events like this? Let me know down in the comments. And if you like this kind of commentary, then please do hit a like, do subscribe, and tap the bell icon so YouTube notifies you when I next publish. Till the next one, I'm Dan. This is Zen Frames. See ya.